Hello, everybody, and welcome to Star Ruler 2. I am Sobedian, and today we're going to be doing something not too different, surprisingly, but different enough. Um, I was on Steam the other day, and I noticed that Star Ruler 1 and Star Ruler 2 are having a bit of a double, I'm not sure if they're sale, but they're having a bit of double bundle where you can buy both. Um, and I saw Star Ruler 1 only, and I thought to myself, this sounds interesting, and it sounds familiar. I'm gonna go have a look. So I hopped on YouTube and I had a look at some videos, and it's very interesting because the original Star Ruler is very similar to Aurora, right? Lots of AI commands and controls over civilian and industry, um, resource management, um, very interesting and ship design and stuff like that. And but the fact that the name Star Ruler was familiar to me kept I don't know, evading where I remember it from. And then I had a look at my library and I thought to myself, hang on, I own Star Ruler 2. So here it is. Star Ruler 2 is has been heavily reworked since the first one, right? You can kind of see the original game, and I will be doing a let's play of the original Star Ruler eventually. I don't haven't actually bought it yet, so eventually. But I thought I'd have a look at Star Ruler 2, and because it is a pretty interesting game, and it's got some very interesting mechanics. And when I get Stellar 1, I'll do a let's play of that, and I'll be able to do like a comparison between 1, 2, and Aurora. But for now, we'll do an episode of Star Ruler 2. Now, there is a rebalance mod and a few other very interesting mods, but I'm gonna do the unmod. I'm gonna play the unmodded version. Um, so first and foremost, we'll have a look. Now, there is a multiplayer, and it is real-time play as well. There's also a design sandbox that allows you to design ships without actually getting into the game, which is interesting, but I'll cover that in the actual game itself. There's also a tutorial and options menu. Options are reasonably. Um, I might actually extend this out to 5 minutes. They're reasonably complex. They're not spectacular, but they do. So let's just jump in then. So we'll start with a new game. So you have a couple different species, right? You got Terrakin, which are basically like mankind evolved. You've got Oko, which appear to be very plant-based, right? So mother stalk, and they rely on like sinew, and they're very interesting. There's the Hunan, which are kind of Borg-like, except without the homicidal nature. There's the Fae, which are kind of like devout religious fanatics. You've got the Sar, which seem to be. Oh, wait. These guys seem to be religious, but not necessarily fanatical. So these guys are like the religious fanatics, and these guys are just highly religious. You've got the Mono, which are fully cybernetic. And you've got the Nili, which they basically only inhabit the stars, right? They believe that the land is um, unclean, and living in the stars and off-world is the way to go. So there are various mods that add different races, and each one has specialized has a unique little thing. So with the Terrakin, they've got no particular benefit or anything else. Um, they do get a little bit more engine speed, but you can customize that kind of stuff. Um, they do get extra nearby asteroids, which can be useful, and some starting cards. And I'll cover the cards when we actually get in there. Then you've got the Oko. Their ships are held together by sinew instead of having a bridge or crew quarters. And they don't have cities, and they need stalks, which are like giant like home trees, stuff like that. You've got the Hunan, which need mainframe orbitals to support their fleets, which are really interesting. The Fae need altars and shrines. Otherwise, their ships are messed up. And you've got various other factors, and they've got different FTL systems as well, so they travel around the universe differently too. So we'll go and have a quick look at the customization. So um, in personality, you've got point by based. So the Terra can have nimble, but you can swap that out, for example, prideful. So whenever you construct a flagship of larger size than your previously largest flagship, you gain permanent bonus influence, stake, and defense generation, depending on how much larger the ship is. So with this, you want to like keep building larger and larger and larger ships, and that will give you bonus influence, stake, and defense generation, and that can come in really handy. Um, and this one you get 3 extra support instead of 1 when you start a vote, and they're really interesting. And I'll cover things in details. Um, this one could be extremely powerful. This one could be very, very powerful. Uh, yeah. Then you have governments, which give you different starting bonuses. You've got your FTL method, which can give you a little bit extra points if you don't have any FTL at all. I think you can eventually get FTL, but um, like with this, you have no FTL, but you get 3 extra points. Um, so hyperdrives allow your ships to just zip along. Fling beacons, you build you build the beacon and then it slings your ships to wherever they need to go. Gates can transport between gates, so you have to travel sublight to your destination, then you build a gate over there. And slipstream allows you to open one slipstream and then like all ships can go through. Very interesting, very different. And they got some foundations which can give you different starting benefits as well. So pre-scouting, random artifacts that are cheaper, and Moonbase. Ancient Workshop is extremely powerful because you get ancient solar orbitals, but we'll cover those. And then you have Life, which is the specific type of bonuses. So and they control how your race basically expands and lives. I'm not gonna mess around with it too much. Uh, I might swap Nimble for Frugal. Yeah, I'll swap Nimble for Frugal because this one seems extremely powerful, and I'll explain why once you actually get into it. I'm going to do a relatively large galaxy, so these 3 extra empires seem okay. And this is good because what I might do instead of Hunan, I might do. Who have? So we have hyperdrive. These guys have gates. These guys have slipstream. We need somebody with fling. Who has fling? Fling. These guys have fling, and Oko have fling. I'll do these guys because these guys are a pain in the ass. Their altars basically ruin entire planets. So we'll do those. Okay. Galaxy. You can scale a galaxy to stupid levels, right? So we're already up at huge systems, and I'm not sure if there is actually an upper limit. It's actually insane how big you can get galaxies, right? And how many systems. Like this game right now, my system might be able to handle it, but there's a good chance that it'll crash before the game even loads, right? And even then, it'll probably be laggy, and the game would take months, right? Right? There's no actual upper limit. The upper limit to the number of systems that you have is how big of a computer do you have. It's kind of cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 100 systems. Spacing just determines how spread out they are. And what's really interesting is that you can have like two spiral galaxies, two identical spiral galaxies, right? Flatten just basically makes them flat instead of 2D. And what's especially awesome is that you can add a second galaxy. So you can have a spiral galaxy, and a corkscrew galaxy. Not sure what loop of wormhole puts a wormhole in the middle that leads to the outside. We won't do that at the moment. So going to do a spiral galaxy of 100 systems and a corkscrew galaxy of 60. And I think that seems okay. Okay. No, 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 no. It's made a mistake.
I need to show you my shirt. I'm like a Jackson Pollock painting of stink. Include that in the recording.
Okay, so we'll ditch this one. And we did not want Hunan, we wanted Mono, I think it was. And we need somebody with Slipstream, which is Nilly. There we go. All right, so we got our system. For game options, you've got various, generation rate. I'm going to leave those as base at the moment because they're reasonable as it is. Dread pirates are very powerful pirates that run around and blow things up. We'll leave those in. Terraforming is handy. We'll leave that one as it is. We're not we're not going to do a fully explored map. I want to show scouting, and we're going to leave the remnants non-aggressive diplomacy event. Yes. We're not going to do a time limit, and we will leave that. Okay, so we have our settings. Yes, I know. And we'll generate the game. All right. So pause right off the bat. So this is the system view. Okay. And there's our spiral galaxy. And there is our corkscrew galaxy. Okay. And you can rotate using the right mouse, although it's a little bit funky with the camera control. There we go. Looks like there's some kind of green nebula over here. I don't know. Okay. But this is where we are. All right. And as you can see, we are on kill. Okay. Sure. Why not? So we are on kill 1. And this is our homeworld. All right. It has a resource of water and a resource of food, specifically fish. Okay. And as it is, because we already have a source of food and water, our planet will automatically advance to level 1. Um, it just needs to grow 2 population, which won't take very long at all. What else do we have? Well, on kill 2, we have a source of food. We have grains. On kill 3, we have another source of water. And on kill 4, we have a source of chemicals. Now, chemicals are a tier 1 resource. That means that the planet needs to be level 1 before it can produce that resource. And this planet also happens to have a very large moon, which allows you to build more on that planet. We also have an asteroid which produces FTL shards, and I'll talk about FTL in a minute, although only for 9 minutes. We have an asteroid here that has 6,000 ore, which is used for certain things later on. And we also have another asteroid with 5.3 thousand ore, and this is our heavy carrier. That's our fleet. I'll come back to that. We also we have another star here, and we have a star here, and we also have another star here. And this is our known system. So the blue is our territory, and this is the known kind of regional territory. All right. As we expand out, we'll obviously discover more stars. Obviously, there's a black hole in the middle, but that's fine. We'll check that out a bit later. Okay. Um, Now you have resources in this game, but you have a bunch of resources, and we have like these planetary resources, right? And these planetary resources, they do 2 things. First of all, they have the tiers which allow you to upgrade planets, and they also do provide something called pressure. All right. So chemicals, for example, produces 3 research pressure. All right, and I'll talk about pressure in more detail, but basically, pressure allows your planets to produce more of these resources up here. All right, so you have money, you have influence, you have energy, you have FTL energy, you have science or research, you have global defense, and you don't see it, but there's also production. And production is used by planets directly. Um, and it's interesting. So global defense basically allows you to produce free support ships for planets. Research is obviously for research. FTL energy, ships can travel anywhere as they want using their sublight engines, but you can also spend FTL energy to activate your FTL drives, which gets them to places faster, obviously. And I'll cover that once we actually have some FTL. So you always generate a little bit, and you can increase that generation rate with technologies and by having certain resources like FTL shards. So this one here, if we start mining it, it will generate an additional zero point 0.5 FTL per second. Anyway, energy is used to activate abilities and artifacts and stuff like that, so it can come in extremely useful. There's also certain diplomacy cards that use energy, like Energy Clash. You don't start off generating any energy, but pressure can generate energy, and certain technologies can give you energy generation as well. Um, there is a cap. As you can see, the more energy you're currently storing above your free storage cap, the more generation is reduced. So with your energy, right? So with FTL, you have a limit of 250. Once you hit 250, it stops. With energy, it will generate. As you can see, we have free storage of 0, so it will generate up to 0. So every point of energy above 0 will decrease our generation rate. You can see the storage penalty there is how much it will suffer. Obviously, increasing your free storage cap allows you to store more energy, but eventually your energy generation will slow down to 0, and you won't gain any more energy until you burn off what you've collected. The same goes with influence. So you have the first number is how many influence points you have, and the second one is your optimal cap. So up until the first number reaches the second number, it will generate at full generation, and then it will slow down and eventually won't generate at all. That second number is largely affected by your influence stake, which is provided by influence buildings. All right. So basically, the influence buildings are produced and constructed on planets that have influence pressure. So the higher your influence pressure, the more influence buildings you get, the higher your stake gets, and the higher your second number gets, which means you can store more influence points, which means you have more influence power in diplomacy. It's very useful to have influence, as it can give you massive bonuses. And finally, we have money. You don't have a treasury, you don't have a storage. If any money that you don't use is not necessarily wasted, but it's not necessarily kept, right? So you can't say. So at the moment we're getting 550,000 space bucks or whatever every 3 minute budget cycle, and anything that's left over will get attributed into here. All right. So depending on the certain conversion ratios, I don't want to, I can't remember what they are, but essentially, based on how much money you get for the budget that is not used, it ends up getting dumped into here. And you can do welfare. So here we go. 350,000 gets an influence. 350,000 goes into an energy point. Every 350 goes into research. Every 350 goes to a labor point on the homeworld, and 350. So it looks like the ratio is about 350,000 per point, right? Um, so you can add influence, energy, research, labor, or global defense. All right. Um, Personally, because we can personally, it's a good idea to get a sense of what you can already produce, right? So this one here, we're going to get research pressure, right? So we don't need research right now from our funds. We don't know what we're going to get in the other planets, but we don't need the research because we're going to start getting research points. So what we want is influence because we don't get any influence at the moment, right? We don't have anything to spend our power on. And we don't really need a massive boost to labor, and we're not going to get very much combat readiness. So welfare is what we are going to be focusing on. So what do we do with these influence points? Well, there is diplomacy, and diplomacy is done in a very unique and interesting way. All right. As you discover races, you get involved in the diplomacy. Well, you don't have to get involved, right? You can just ignore them and let them do their own thing. But some things are going to impact you no matter what you do. And not getting involved can be dangerous because you get a lot of bonuses and a lot of power by playing the diplomacy game. All right. So with influence, right, every 30 seconds, the card on the left disappears, and the card on the right, and a new card on the right appears, and the whole thing shifts one to the left. Cards on the left are cheapest. Cards on the right are most cost more influence to buy. And in this row here, we can buy cards, right? So if we had 2 influence, we could grab this energy clash card for 2 influence. And what does the energy clash do? Well, for 200 energy, we can add 2 voting weight. All right. So it costs energy and it applies two weight to our vote. So it votes by 2 points. All right. And so this one here is great if you have lots of energy income. You want lots of energy clashes, right? Because you have the energy to burn. You don't have to save up influence to burn. Negotiate, on the other hand, it costs 5 to buy right now because of where it is. It probably dropped to like 3 or 4 once it gets down to here. And its weight is 2, so it also adds 2 vote weight, but it costs 2 influence to play instead. So instead of costing 200 energy, it costs 2 influence to play. This one here, it has a vote weight of 7, and it costs 4 influence to play. And it sounds fantastic. Look at it, you get 7 weight instead of only 2 for only twice the cost. But all other empires that are present gain a 0 cost, a free to play 1 weight card, right? So if you have 8 empires, then all 8 of them will get an ancient intuition. So this can get extremely dangerous to play if you don't have very many friends and if there are a lot of empires in play. But for 7 vote, it might just be worth it. And there are many things that you can do, right? And there are lots of them that there are a lot more than these as well. Yeah, so we start off with some negotiates. So we have 3 negotiate of 2 weight, and this star here means that it's an extra powerful one. So we have 2 of those, and they are 4 weight. So they're double the power for only 1 extra influence. Very powerful, very useful. And obviously you want the more powerful cards, but you also want the cheaper ones because they're cheaper to play, right? So if you only have 4 influence, you could play 1 of these, or you could play 2 of these. You get the same outcome, but you still have one. But you still have 1 influence left over. So more powerful ones are usually better. But if you only have, say, 2 influence, you have to be able to use this one instead. We also have these 2 as well. So the name planet one, and you can see here that this one is a diplomatic action. So it's used whenever you want, as long as you have the cost, you can pay the cost. It can be used whenever you want, and nobody can do anything about it. Whereas, for example, this one requires a vote, right? So you play it with your 6 influence, and then other empires get to vote on it, right? And if it passes, then the effect the effect activates, and if it fails and you get voted down, then there might be an effect, or for this one, nothing happens. But for example, this one, right? We can name a planet, whatever we want, and it will add 1 labor generation. It will add +2 to maximum population, and this one's more powerful, so it'll actually give +3 to population. Um, yeah, so for every quality level, it goes up by 1 extra population. It costs 6 influence to play, and we have 0, so obviously we can't activate it. This one here will name a flagship, and it will give plus 16 extra, plus 16% extra effectiveness to that flagship. And obviously, you can only name them once, so you can't stack namings. And we'll explore more detail this in more detail as well once we get to it. Research is different. I think one of my mods has didn't get deactivated properly. Yeah, I'm pretty sure one of my mods might not have been deactivated properly. Either that, or they changed it around since the last time I played. Anyway, so you start off with science, right? And you have branches, and what everything next to what you have researched, you can research further. So this one here, impact, all ship weapon damage increases by 10%. Nice flat bonus. It costs 500 research points to research and 60 seconds. The research time is insignificant. The research cost is what you're going to be paying attention to. This one here increases your budget by 150,000, so you have an extra 150,000 every 3 minutes to play with. Once again, 500 research cost, and you can apparently queue it up, but I guess clicking on it queues it. And this one here is interesting because armoring, right, increases all armor health by 15%, and we'll cover that once we actually get to design, which I'll probably do a bit later because starting to run a bit low on time. But this one here has an alternate unlock, so we can spend 500 research points, or we could spend $750,000. Now, what's interesting is that we can get this now. Right? We have a budget of only 550, but we could get this right now. How? Well, it's simple. This 550,000 budget is our current budget, right? So this is for this 3-minute cycle. But we know that our next budget is going to be another 550,000 space bucks, right? And what this means is that we can take our entire 550,000 budget, and then we can borrow another 200,000 off the next budget, right? So what that means is for 3 minutes, if we want to research this for 3 minutes, our budget will drop to 0, and then after 3 minutes, when the next budget cycles in, it will be 200,000 space bucks less, which means we'll only get 350,000 space bucks to work with for the next budget, and then the budget after that will go back up to 550, assuming we don't overspend. So you functionally have twice your budget, but if you spend some of your next budget, then you won't have that money on the next cycle. So it's going to take longer for you to get your full budget back. It can be worth it to spend that extra budget, but you do need to be careful because anything that you spend doesn't end up going into wherever you're putting it, and it does mean that you might potentially screw yourself on the next budget because you don't have a budget for the next cycle. Anyway, so that's research. Obviously, once you unlock a node, you can unlock the next one after that. So we can't get bulkheads until we do armoring. So once we do armoring, then we can do bulkheads. And bulkheads are a component. So you can place, and I'll cover component once we get to construction. So it's a component that you can place on your ships. Community is a little wiki, and the planet is well, I'll cover planets once we actually have more planets to work with. So, that's actually running out of time. So what I'll do is I'll queue up a few things, and I'll put a break in the video, and then in the next one, we'll go. Actually, no, I won't queue it. I'll queue in the beginning of the next video. So the current plan is going to be get our homeworld. We want to find a good high quality resource that we can focus on. But for now, we'll need to get this chemicals unlocked so we can get our planet up nice and high, or at least our home will probably be actually supplying this one to get it up nice and high. But we'll cover that once we actually get to it. Right, so put a break in the video now. So thank you for watching so far. We'll continue on the next one. I'll probably double up and send both episodes out at the same time. And so like, subscribe, all the usual stuff, and I will see you in the next episode.